welcome to the second session of the Med Dialogues 2030, organized by the European Institute of the Mediterranean, the EMED, the Barcelona office of the Club of Rome, Club de Roma, and La Caixa Foundation. I'm very happy to welcome you all today here at Caixa Forum Macaya. Just for those of you that cannot follow properly in English, there is interpretation, so you can use the audio that they give you. You can choose the channel, so you will have interpretation directly. I will keep talking in English because our speaker today cannot speak Spanish, so we will do it all in English, but I hope you can follow properly with interpretation. I'm Marta Castillo. I'm a journalist, and I'm currently working at Revolve. We are a communication group based here in Barcelona and in Brussels, and we focus on communicating around sustainability. So from the office here in Barcelona, we lead an initiative called UNWASH that aims to bring together different stakeholders, such as journalists or researchers, policymakers, to ensure reliable communication and impactful communication about water challenges. And we have been working on this topic for the past year, so I'm very happy to be here today as part of Revolve team to discuss such a hot topic as water stress in the Mediterranean. So, as some of you might know already, the title of today's dialogue is Water Stress as a Threat to Millions, and Challenges and Solutions on the Way to Water Security in the Mediterranean. So, I don't know how familiar you are with the topic, but maybe some of you have already heard that the Mediterranean region is a climate change hotspot, where that means that vulnerabilities are exacerbated. The region is, for you to have an overview of the situation, the region is warming faster than the average. So the projection, the calculations are that by 2040, the air temperature will be 2.2 degrees Celsius higher, so will rise 2.2 degrees Celsius. So for you to have also a bit of context, the global average is 1.5. So we are in a critical situation in the region. And regarding water, there are many worrying figures. I'm sure that our speaker today will go in deep into that, such as some of them, reduction of summer rainfall, increasing of existing water shortages, desertification, many other negative impacts of climate change in water in the region. However, even if the whole region is suffering such a water stress, the figures point, and I'm sure also Hassan will be highlighting that today, that the South Mediterranean countries will be more affected. So, for example, just a figure for you to understand, like uneven distribution of renewable water resources. So, like 3 parts of the renewable water resources are located in northern Mediterranean countries. So that's putting the southern countries in a very difficult position. So the Middle East and North Africa region, according all the figures, is the most water stressed region in the world. So that means that the southern Mediterranean countries are at the top of the most water stressed countries in the world. And water insecurity has multiple implications. We will go in deep into that later today. But some of them are food security, for example. There are many different implications to water security. Also some other figures. I don't want to take much time, but I think this is important to set a bit the scene. Only 1% of the global available water resources are found in the MENA region. So that means that over 60% of the region population has little or no access to safe drinking water. And it's a region where population and urbanization are increasing and are growing fast. So also for you to understand, like 3/3 of the region's population is living in cities. So that puts the region in a very critical situation that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And I'm sure a speaker today here will agree with me, but the horizon seems very complicated right now and for water security in the Mediterranean. But I want to emphasize, and I want to make it so negative since the beginning, that there are solutions and there is technology available, but we just need the willingness and the commitment for that solutions and that technology to be implemented and to tackle the challenge, a vital issue that we need to tackle. So to deep dive in this topic today, we will first have Álvaro Albacete, who couldn't be here today. He's the Deputy Secretary General for Water, Environment and Blue Economy at the Union for the Mediterranean, and he will be intervening via a video, so we will hear to his intervention. He will give a short keynote speech of around 15 minutes, focusing on negative water effects of water scarcity and the role of the Union for the Mediterranean and its programs and initiatives to tackle this challenge. And after Álvaro's keynote, we will welcome our speaker today, Hassan Aboelnga. He's currently the Executive Manager of Arab Network for Sustainable Development at the League of Arab States. And he's a renowned professional in issues of water security, and he will give a short presentation after Álvaro's keynote to set the scene and for you to have the general overview of what's the situation in the region. And after that, we will engage in a conversation, in a dialogue, where you are more than welcome to participate, and you will have your time to share your thoughts, your questions, your remarks. So we will be more than happy to hear you and to have an interactive session. So I won't take more time, and I would like to give the floor to Álvaro's video. So let's hear him.
Buenas tardes a todos, buenas tardes a todos ustedes. Yo que siempre he sido un gran defensor de la presencia física en este tipo de actos o de conferencias, hoy no puedo estar presente con todos ustedes y realmente lo lamento. Ha sido la coincidencia de un viaje este mismo día que me ha impedido estar con vosotros, pero insisto, para mí es muy importante esa presencia física y hoy no puedo asistir a este acto con ustedes. Les voy a robar solo 2 minutos de su tiempo y voy a hacerlo para contextualizar la intervención que ustedes van a oír a continuación del doctor Hassan Aboelnga. Saben ustedes que estas conferencias que organiza el IEMET junto con la Fundación La Caixa y el Club de Roma tratan sobre el Mediterráneo, y hoy en particular se va a tratar sobre los recursos hídricos, sobre el agua en el Mediterráneo. El Mediterráneo es lo que los ingleses llaman un hotspot del cambio climático, es decir, un área en la que el cambio climático está produciéndose de una manera especialmente intensa. Los científicos estiman que esa intensidad se mide en un 20% por encima al resto del planeta, por encima del calentamiento global. Y ese incremento del calentamiento en la zona del Mediterráneo tiene efectos en los recursos hídricos. De nuevo, los científicos nos dicen que si ese calentamiento se produce en 2 grados centígrados, tendrá repercusiones en las precipitaciones hídricas entre un 15 y un 20%. Y si ese calentamiento del 2 pasa al 4%, las reducciones en precipitaciones alcanzarán o podrían alcanzar el 30%, y ello tendría como consecuencia la expansión de los territorios afectados por la desertificación, la reducción del caudal de los ríos, de los acuíferos, etcétera, etcétera. Es decir, es un panorama desolador si no ponemos remedio o no ponemos medios para combatir o para mitigar el efecto del cambio climático y en particular del calentamiento en la zona del Mediterráneo. Pero yo no soy un científico, soy un diplomático, así que no quiero abrumarles con más datos científicos. Sí quiero decirles que en el área del Mediterráneo la demanda del agua es cada día mayor. Anualmente se produce un incremento de esa demanda como consecuencia de la expansión de las zonas urbanas, de la expansión de las explotaciones agrícolas, de la expansión de la industria y también de la expansión del turismo. Al menos un tercio del turismo mundial se produce en el Mediterráneo. y esa cifra se incrementa también anualmente. Hay en zonas específicas de Líbano, de Jordania, de Turquía, de Grecia, en la que los movimientos migratorios también exigen que se incrementen los recursos hídricos. Los campos de refugiados en estas zonas multiplican por 50, por 100, a veces por 200 las necesidades hídricas de áreas puntuales. Y también a eso hay que dar respuesta. Pero les decía que yo no soy científico, sino que soy diplomático, y nuestra labor primordial como diplomático es poner en común, perdonen, me están llamando, es poner en común el trabajo que hacen los diversos estados en el área del Mediterráneo. Y en eso estamos trabajando, le llamamos la iniciativa de diplomacia científica. Si parte de la solución al problema del cambio climático en el Mediterráneo pasa por la ciencia y por la aplicación de la ciencia a través de la innovación, debemos entre todos intentar cooperar, poner en común los resultados científicos que obtenemos, y a eso nos dedicamos en la Unión por el Mediterráneo. Intentamos sumar fuerzas entre todos los Estados miembros. La reunión que tuvo lugar hace 2 semanas en esta misma sede, aunque de manera virtual, entre los 42 Estados miembros de la Unión por el Mediterráneo, versó sobre esa cuestión: cómo los Estados podemos poner en común nuestros resultados y nuestras buenas prácticas en la gestión del agua. Y así, en esa dirección vamos a seguir trabajando. Me detengo aquí porque será mi compromiso con los organizadores no extenderme más allá de los 2 o 3 minutos, y les dejo en las mejores manos, en las manos de un experto para tratar estos temas, que es el doctor Hassan Aboelnga. Él les hablará sobre seguridad hídrica y particularmente en el Mediterráneo, y lo hará en el contexto de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible y la Agenda 2030. Muchas gracias.
Well, so after Alvaro's presentation, I will now give the floor to Hassan, who will make, as I said, a first short presentation.
Okay, so thanks so much, European Institute for the Mediterranean, for the invitation and for giving us the floor to speak here. And thanks so much also for everyone here that come today also to talk about one of the important topics that we have been facing today. It's about water security. I thank Alvaro for setting the theme on the issue of the challenges that we have been facing in the Mediterranean. So to give you a perspective on what is happening when it comes to water security in the Mediterranean, I will not, it's not about to be pessimistic or optimistic, it's mainly to be realistic about what is happening now and what we need to achieve water security in the Mediterranean. So my presentation will go over about the challenges, about what are opportunities, and about also a new paradigm that I am calling for the Mediterranean in order to achieve water security and sustainable development. So in terms of water in the Mediterranean, we have been facing great change pressures of increasing demands due to population growth. Now the Mediterranean have reached to more than 500 million people. So it means that they need more water. Besides that, climate change with hydrological uncertainty and extremes, such as floods and droughts, all of this put a great pressure on our socio-economic development and the vulnerability of our water resources. And what we have reached today, that the world is off track to almost all water-related sustainable development goals. And today, there is also the high political forum, which also giving us the progress on the sustainable development goal number 6 on safely managed water and sanitation, that we are still off track. So we have been 6 years into the implementation of the UN Agenda of 2030, and what today the remark or the warning from United Nations to all countries that we are off track. So for me today, I will explain why we are really off track, what are the main root causes of this, and what I see as a new paradigm for the world and especially for the Mediterranean, how they really accelerate the progress and really achieve water security. What I am presenting today, it's more from my study. I am engineer by profession, but I have a wide expertise with social, with political, and so I am working as a researcher, so I have the academia. I work at League of Arab States with the politics, and also I am in many leading positions at many networks working on water and climate and sustainable development. So I will not go through about the climate issue as Olivero has explained, that also the Mediterranean is a hotspot for climate change. But also, when it comes to the SDG progress in the Mediterranean, you would find in this figure, when it comes to the Arab region, that you see all these red points. It means that major challenges remain. That means that we are off track to achieve the water goal, or we have problems with water. In terms of the SDG 6, that calls for access to safely managed water and sanitation. It means access to the water services. All the Mediterranean, you would find it, most of us, we are connected to the network, to the water network. But we don't all have water all the time. In many parts of the Mediterranean, in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Cyprus, in some parts of Turkey, and some countries also will lead to what is called intermittent water supply, in which people receive water only once or twice per week. So it means that they have to invest in roof tanks in order to store water, and only the public utility or the utilities that supplying water is only supplying water for a specific time. This will come with major challenges. In Europe, the issue, it is not about the water availability. It's about the water security perspective, which has to be in a more holistic approach in terms not only about the water availability, but also protection of climate change from water-related hazards and water quality issues and the climate change hazards. I am already based in Germany, and as you may all know, last year in the North Rhine-Westphalia, there were floods, which hits also, and more than 100 people died from the floods, with implications for sure in the city itself, deteriorating or really damaging the infrastructures and the ecosystem in this place. So if you can see these figures from reports of this year in 2022, that we see that the North Africa region and the Arab region and the Mediterranean part also of Europe, they are off track in some issues like nitrate in groundwater, which is a big issue, and phosphorate also in rivers. And there are similar challenges between us. So we have increasing demands, population growth, and this means that we need more water, we need more food, that we need also to supply or to meet the demand of the people. In the other side, when it comes also issues of transboundary water, which mainly water that goes from other countries. You all heard about what is happening in Egypt from building upstream dams, and this for sure will be impacting downstream countries like Sudan and Egypt. The same also with many issues also in the Mediterranean. In Spain, they have been also facing some challenges with transboundary water that put a great pressure on the current water resources. So in terms of looking at this, at water is not only, we take it for granted, but it's really interconnected with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So it means that water at the heart of sustainable development. And for sure, to ensure that we achieve sustainable development for all, it means that we need to ensure water security for all. And this is very critical. And for that, the current rate of progress needs to be doubled or even tripled in order to achieve
water security. Now I'm saying is that we are entering a decade of crisis. We're starting with the COVID-19. 2 years have been on it, and then comes with Russia-Ukraine crisis, and all this crisis has really implications on our water and food security. So the COVID-19 has really revealed the fragility of our systems, especially in Eastern Mediterranean region. We see today the inflation is very high. It reached to more than 40%. Some countries you can see, like in Lebanon, it's more than 154%, or Yemen 30%. In Europe, you see also the euro is really equivalent to dollars. This means also inflation will put a great pressure on food prices. For sure, this all nearly about 50 nations are really depend on Ukraine and Russia for at least 30% of the wheat imports. This is according to the United Nations of FAO. This also impacting really countries which is really depending on imports, like in Egypt, in Libya, in Yemen, or in Tunisia. And according to the simulations of the World Bank, that every 1% increase in the MENA food prices, nearly 500,000 or additional people would be really living in poverty. So it means that we are aiming for the SDG 1 to end extreme poverty. And with the challenges that we have been facing today, it is not only increasing or really staying at a constant level, but also decreasing from the crisis or from the challenges that we have been facing today. So the question now, are we coming to water crisis? Yes. The data or the science tells us that you see now the implications of water security or water insecurity. In terms of 60% of the population lives really in areas with high or very high surface water stress. Some countries, the water per capita or the share for each one, like as a bank account, if you have like a cup of water like this is the amount for you per year. With the increasing demands and also more people, population growth, it means your share of water will be decreased. So you will facing more crisis in the future when it comes to ensuring or meeting the demand. For sure, many countries have been facing this. The second part is mainly about what we have been facing today in some countries, as I said, with intermittent water supply. So governments or countries cannot afford to meet the demand for water supplies. Instead of supplying water continuously, so 24/7, you open your tap, you find the water, you have intermittent of water supply. So they supply water only once or twice, but you don't fill it because you fill your tanks, but you will see many countries, all the roof tanks or all the ground full of tanks in order to store water. And then people also are afraid that maybe if there is a crisis or anything could be happen, or a war or something like this, these people will be also in danger to supply water. Also, around 180 million people in the Mediterranean are really affected by water poverty. And when we are talking about water poverty or water scarcity, it means links to everything around us. It's linked to immigration. When we see people also in their place, they don't have access to safely manage the water and sanitation. They have been facing challenges with climate change, like floods or droughts, and there is an ecosystem for them to live in this area, so they displace from this place. And for sure, we have seen in the past years how the influx of refugees into the Mediterranean. All this has really a great impact. The other part is mainly about also transboundary water, or the water that's really coming from outside. 60%, 2/3 of our water in the North Africa are really coming from outside the region. it comes to 95%, or most of the water, like in case of Egypt, most of the water coming from outside the region. So for sure, for them, it's really a matter of life, and this is for them also implications not only to people about drinking water, but also farmers and also other users. And this all have really implications on our daily life. So this is what we have been facing about the challenge. When it comes to finance, do we have the money really, or the finance to ensure really safely managed water and sanitation for all, or water security for all? You would find with the agenda of the 2030 agenda of the United Nations that we need 4 to 6 times of the capital investment of today to ensure water security. And today, the estimates of the World Bank that we invest only 15% of the needed in the needed finance. So it means that we need a new paradigm to achieve water security from financial perspective. That we need more finance. We need new sources. The current model of finance will not deliver the SDGs. You can see most of this in urban area. With urbanization, you see all these challenges from water quality issues. People are coming to this water trucks in order to get water. Wastewater, which is really a huge risk to many places. Floods, you have been seeing in many places around the Mediterranean, droughts, and also the high level of water losses. So before water reaches to you, the infrastructure that is really deteriorated is really causing leakage in the network with really implications on water losses. It can reach even to 40 or 50% in some countries. Their drinking water is really being lost. I will come to this in other slide. And when we are talking about water, it is not only about the utility level, who is supplying the water for you. In terms of water supply or wastewater, it comes also to you at the second level, connecting water with the ecosystem or with the city, and the third level about connecting cities that are connected to basins. So you have seen this management of water resources in a downward spiral of things. Increase the urbanizations, it means a higher water demand. So you need to expand the network beyond the capacity, and for sure you have an adequate water supply and private investment by the privileged, poor services for the most, corruption, conflict, less willingness to pay because you are not supplying water all the time or have problems with it, more leakage in the network, increased also the high levels of non-revenue water. That means that water, if you can take it from a money perspective, is being lost, whether due to the physical losses, like deteriorating the infrastructure and there is a leakage, or commercial finance problems with meters and billing inefficiencies. So this is an intermittent water supply. This is the causes for it. I will come just for some issues about what I said about non-revenue water. You see that this water that has been produced but lost before it reaches to the customers. You see this is a typical example. This figure, typically what we can do, they will say increase water supply from desalination or from wastewater reuse, use more resources. But actually, if you plug the leaks or you reduce the losses, then you can supply people with the water. As I told you, some countries reach to really 50% of their water is being lost. When it comes to desalination, as you can see also, Egypt has really a good plan to expand in desalination in order to meet the demand. When it comes to urban water security, a new definition for it is mainly to be a dynamic policy in order to adapt with the challenges today. So in order to make a policy for water security, it means that to be dynamic, it means to reflect what is happening currently and really adapt to it. Water security, in order to measure, if I come back to the ancient Egyptian, they have this nilometer, which is like this structure for to let you know about the water level in the river. So if there is a floods, it means there is implications on the society. So also farmers can take care of it. If we can take this is analysis like in Jordan. If you can see this figure, it means from 1 to 5, 1 is really poor water security, and 5 is high water security. You find many challenges with this red bullets. This is also in Lebanon. So for that, we need really a new paradigm in the way we manage, in the way we finance, in the way we collaborate with each other, and the way we design our policies. So this is the 5 I's that we should go to work on it in terms of integration, innovation, infrastructure, information, and the institutions that are all working together toward it. And for sure, we cannot forget the role of digital transformation. And now for the new technologies and innovation, in order to implement this would be using it as an instrumented, interconnecting all stakeholders and the systems together, and also engaging society and the citizen with them in the management for them. So what a key message for this, and this would be the last slide, is mainly about the proactive acceleration. It means for proactive, the P represent to look at the priorities of the region, resilience, opportunities, adaptive solutions, coherence of the policies, because water is not a sector, it's a connector that connects all policies and all users. So we need a coherent policy for this. As I told you, I'm also the executive manager of the Arab Network for Sustainable Development. We are currently working with World Bank with the initiative also to present at the next COP27 a new knowledge portal for climate change to inform a decision maker about the challenges and also the opportunities to achieve climate change. And this is very crucial even for the region to ensure water security and sustainable development. So the network, the Arab Network for Sustainable Development, is open to all. You can use this barcode to, or even you can go for the website if you wanted to register. It's open for all stakeholders at different levels, from policymakers to different stakeholders. Thanks so much for your attention, and we'll be happy to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. It's been very, very insightful, and we have now a lot of things to discuss still. I mean, as we have seen with your presentation, there are many challenges to tackle. There are many, many things that can be done to address this topic. But I would like to start deep diving a bit more in the new paradigm that you presented very briefly. So I would like you to explain a bit more. So you presented this new paradigm for the future of water, and you highlighted, like, among other things, that we need to change the way we finance water. Mm-hmm. And what do you mean by that exactly? Like, you also shared the figure of how much we invest in mm-hmm. water globally. I think that was the figure. But what do you think? What do you mean more in detail? Like, what should be changed? And,
So two more critical points that we should go for in terms of the new paradigm. In the way we manage water, that means that we shift from this linear systems of use and dispose, which means that use water once and throw it away. And for doing so, we have 80% of our water, wastewater, is being discharged to the environment without getting use of it. And this is untapped resource for us in order to close the cycle and really achieve water security. And when it comes to finance, the current public finance is really not sufficient to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 on safely managed water and sanitation. And this current model is mainly coming from what? Is coming from the water tariffs or from the credit worthy. Many Mediterranean countries or many utilities in the Mediterranean, they are not credit worthy. So if you go to the bank and they ask them to give you money They will ask you what is your assets or what is your resources in order to trust you to get the money back. And if you ask these utilities in the Mediterranean, you will find them, most of them, they are not creditworthy. So they cannot even cover their operation and the maintenance cost. And for how they can solve this, it means that there is a need for a new sources of finance with commercial finance. And this is mainly that public finance, they are insufficient and poorly targeted, and also it's more crowd in rather than crowd out rather than crowd in, which means that bringing more finances for it. And for solving this, first you need to plan and budget these public resources more efficiently in order to use it well, in order to really meet with the current challenges. And the second is mainly about leverage this public finance to attract the private sector or to attract innovation and technologies to come together to achieve this. And the other is mainly increasing the performance and the governance of the water sector. And the last one is mainly to reducing the high water losses in the systems. Because if you bring finance and if you bring the best company in the world to come to your place in order to work in your place, and there is a leakage and there is a deteriorated infrastructure, it wouldn't help you. So this would be really a first priority for any water utility, because I say this water losses is really the cancer of any water utility. It kills the utility, and they will not achieve any progress if they still with this high levels of non-revenue water.
But why they are not creditworthy, like these utilities? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, because water tariffs is really very low. There is high losses of water, like in some countries, like in Jordan, and it's one of the most water scarce. It's the second scarce water resources. I studied in a city, 60% of the water is being lost. So it means that they cannot pay of it. So it means 50% of your money is lost. So if you wanted to operate the systems, so it means this water losses that's being lost is not only a losses of water, it's a loss of financial resources, it's a loss of energy, because if you need water to be driven in the system, so you need more energy, and for sure this have also implications on food, and that is why they cannot cover their operation and the maintenance cost. In addition, for sure, to the governance or the management of resources, that they need a new policies to work on it, because if you say I will increase the water tariff, but you don't improve the service, then the people will also demonstrate and will be also social implications of it. But you need for sure to improve the service and to show there is a progress when it comes to the services, and they can feel it, and
then people will pay
happily
for the
have the willingness to pay.
Exactly, sure. If you get like good quality water in your tap every day, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, another of the things that were in this new paradigm that you were presenting is the cooperation. So increasing the cooperation among actors and around the region. Like, I think that's a key topic, and with the portal that you were presenting at the end as well, like it's another step to share knowledge and to collaborate among all. But how do you envision those ways of collaboration, like those new ways of collaboration that are not happening now?
Yeah, so to ensure water security and sustainable development, cooperation is really key, whether in the national level, because you have a ministries like Ministry of Water, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Energy, and they are working in silos. And the policies that they have been implementing, like in agriculture, they would say, I will make this area really with agriculture uses, and then they implement both design for it and both investment for it, and then the Ministry for Water will come to them, and then they will tell them from where we can supply this water. We have a limited water issues, and this is very common in many countries. So there is a need for coherent policies, especially for water. Water is not a sector and should be deals when a water ministers, it should be very connected with all ministers, with finance minister, because the budget directed to the water sector is also very low. And if we need really to put water at the forefront of our priorities, that means that we need also from parliaments and also from the political willingness to also to invest in water. Also the other side of this implications, also cooperation at the basin level. We are talking about the Mediterranean. Water is being also covering many or running in many countries, and then we need a cooperation between them, like the case of Egypt, which is happening today. There is really a huge conflict that has been now for a decade, which hasn't been solved. The same also, I know Spain also has been also facing this with their rivers. Many countries also, they have many rivers, and I think now today with the increasing demands and with climate change, it means that we put pressure on the water resources, that they need more water, and the one or the country that they have been not asking yesterday about the water or the uses of water will ask also now, because they have also more demand and more demand for water. So that is why cooperation should be at between even also different institutions with different also backgrounds, like academia with the policy and with practice. They should all come together in order to provide these solutions. For sure, at the regional level, as Alivero also was presenting the UFM water agenda, it is not about the water agenda with the water ministers. It's about also the finance ministers, about also the other ministers to come together to really to ensure that what they have been designing their policy and providing policies like this will be really implemented. Because you can have a really nice strategy, but you cannot achieve it because there is a lack of finance or a lack of resources. And this is very common when we are optimistic with the strategies.
Or that different ministries are working in different directions, so in the end, like they don't find a common ground. But I mean, seeing the figures that you have shared, we are in quite a critical situation now. Like, I mean, we really need to take action. So do you see this happening like soon? Like, do you see this cooperation and this new paradigm really happening in the, I don't know, next 5 years, like in the close future?
I think there are many offers to collaborate. But now with the crisis that we have been facing from COVID-19, as with the Ukraine also with the Russia crisis, also shifting the way countries look at their securities from water and food security. We have seen in during the COVID-19, each country wants to really protect itself from COVID-19 with really their resources. Some countries even, because you know the region is really dependent on food supplies, some countries they prevent their food prices to get out because they don't know what will come in the next day. So they need to ensure about also water and also food, really food security for them. And in terms of water and food security, each country or any country cannot achieve it alone, because you have an implication like here in Spain, you are depending on cotton, and it's really high water intensive like in Egypt. But today we cannot afford to really grow cotton in our countries because it's highly intensive and more people would need this water. So you need to cooperate with these countries. And actually, most of these countries, they have been facing a challenge to find a framework for cooperation. They know the challenges, but they are afraid from the future. Now we have seen now with the inflation and also food prices will be very high. Each country will be also very strict and very conservative on the way also they import their food. They even will, we have seen in many countries in the recent years also, they have been shifting the food system or the agriculture uses of it to depend on some important foods and need to be prevented to be exported. Some like in Egypt, we have seen also limiting also the agriculture uses of rice because it's also high water intensive, especially in the delta. So all these measures has really impacting the country. And my statement here is really water security is really a national security, because once you really have really a water crisis, it will put the region, like what happens in the Arab Spring is mainly they are calling for water and food, and also the examples are very common worldwide about this.
Yes, I also wanted to ask you about this, but so like to close this question, like then we are in the right moment, I would say, no, to make this happen, like because we have seen the challenges, like they are not in the future, they are not in 50 years, like we have seen it's really here, like not being able to import food because it's too expensive, as it happened in some countries in the Middle East recently, like not being able to produce as much as your population wants to consume, like not having enough water, like we are really seeing that the situation is happening, like it's not in the future, so we should be in the right position to act now, right?
Yeah, but we should be also optimistic, because there are some solutions that we have today, like as I said, from innovation and the digital transformation. This would be really a good, really a progress for the sector to have a real-time monitoring of our system, and even to project the challenges that we could face in the future. So we can really better be ready for this. You have heard about cities that reach to day zero, in which they don't have really water. But if we can really have to work with digital transformation and governance, and also the management of water resources, and look at it from holistic perspectives, this would ensure water security for the country. And actually, the good thing also in our region in the Mediterranean is also about the youth and the new generation. The new generation are really aware of the challenges of water and climate change, not like the past generation, because they face the challenges of today. And the climate change, we are heading to the COP27, and really the first generation that calls for climate actions is really coming from this generation, from youth. So we need to be also optimistic that this also younger generation will have the capacity to lead the transition. But we should for them empower them in order to give them the chance to implement this.
Yes, I totally agree on that. So yeah, I mean, I also wanted to, I mean, not to be so negative, as I said at the beginning as well, like of course the horizon is very dark right now, like everything is pointing to, I mean, a bad situation, but we know that there is this technology, there are solutions that can be implemented, and we need that willingness. So I wanted to ask you, like, which are like some best practices or like examples, like concrete examples in the region of countries or like regions inside the Mediterranean region that are really working towards that, I mean, that they are in the right path, let's say.
Yeah, I think there are many efforts when we are looking at water security at different levels. I could say that Spain is really leading the Mediterranean and even the world in digital transformation for water sector, because they are really more advanced in many other countries, and really we can even learn from Spain or also experience on digital transformation to transfer it to other countries. And also the other examples also that we can see is also really it's changing the paradigm when it comes to increasing the credit worthy of water utility, engaging private sector. This is in Europe is also been happening in a good way. Also, there are many also in the Mediterranean or in the European side, they have really the framework, the water framework,
Yes.
and even the transboundary water cooperation that they can really work on it. But there are some challenges, as I presented, when it comes to the water quality, especially in the rivers, in this transboundary water, and dealing with climate change. And I think like whether the North Africa or all the Mediterranean, now they have really need to really to double their efforts when it comes to climate change. And the first thing is should they do is really to have the knowledge for this. Because now we have seen also many politicians or many policy makers, they are not aware of the importance of really addressing climate change, because it's really interconnected
Yes.
with the sustainable development. They would say we have many challenges. Should we invest in climate, or we meet the demand of people? But it's really interconnected with them.
Yeah.
That is why we have this new initiative with World Bank, making a new climate knowledge portal in order to inform decision makers and stakeholders about what is happening in the region and how we can really act on it.
Okay, yeah. I was also thinking on the case of Jordan, for example, like it's always pointed as the best, a good case on fighting.
For sure, in wastewater reuse, also Jordan has really a good best practices when it comes to wastewater reuse and using it for different purposes, for agricultural purposes, which is really a good thing for this country, which is really facing really a water security issues. And using also with wastewater, it has also the organic matter, which can be used as a biogas, so you can use it as an energy source. And this is for sure because Jordan has an energy problems, so it also support the energy system or energy security from the water sector.
But there are other countries in the region that are facing the same challenges, and they
Yeah,
are not
exactly.
really working in that direction. So
Yeah, it's mainly about to look at, as I present in this figure, there are many issues and many trade-offs. You have many solutions, but you need to also to mind the trade-offs for it. If you say, I will go for desalination or for a new source, and if your system is really deteriorated, what would happen? This new source of water will be also lost, so we will be also in a vicious cycle of waste. And also for wastewater reuse, if I would say, okay, now I will use wastewater reuse for agriculture. If you didn't treat it properly, and we see now some challenges with groundwater in many countries in the Mediterranean, then you will also have negative impacts on water quality in groundwater, so you're impacting negatively. So understanding these trade-offs and putting a really integrated solution, this would be the way for them. And critical point to work with any countries to reduce their levels of water losses, to improve the management of water resources, improve the governance, having also the political willingness for doing so, and to put water really at the forefront. And after this, we need also to, as we said, to work at all sides when it comes to the way we manage water, to the way we finance, the way we collaborate with each other. So it needs this really a collaborative, because collective actions when it comes to achieving water security is really the way forward for the region to ensure water security for all.
And legislation, I guess, because, for example, the problem with the water reuse is that you need to ensure water quality.
This is the governance point of view, how to make this, because some examples also in wastewater reuse, you need also to work with communities.
Yes.
Because if I tell you now in Europe, you would drink from the treated wastewater, you will be shocked at the beginning. But if you really trust the water quality, and it's happening in many countries, they can even treat this wastewater and they make it to the higher level of drinking water according to the WHO standards. And this for sure need trust from the government and really working on the social compact between communities and their institutions.
But the technology is there, like it's possible.
And the technology is there, but we need really
Yes.
to work on it.
Yeah. So I don't know if there are some questions from the audience. Yes, I see there is one there. So we can start opening the conversation.
Soc Pep Soler, arquitecto, miembro del Colegio de Arquitectos de aquí de Barcelona, y quiero anécdota una anécdota que creo que pondremos un poco de ilusión a este estrés hidráulico. Este año a Barcelona nos han dado un premio sobre la conservación de las torres del agua de la manera que la ciudad ha ido conservando estos suministros de agua para la ciudadanía. A raíz de este premio, el Colegio de Arquitectos hizo una serie de jornadas sobre el patrimonio del agua. Dentro del patrimonio del agua me tocó defender una tesis sobre la hidratación de la ciudad, en el sentido de que para hidratar la ciudad partíamos de tres conceptos. El primer, claro, es la ciudad de esponja, que es aquella manera de recuperar el 80% del agua de la lluvia que no se pierda y hacerla servir para cuando hay sequías. Por otro lado, el exceso de hormigón y el exceso de coches contamina las aguas subterráneas, con lo cual hay un problema de cuidar y sanear las aguas subterráneas. Y entonces vemos que como solución nada más está el empleo de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. Con estos tres ejemplos, con estas tres bases de trabajo, yo me he dado cuenta de que hemos puesto las bases a un urbanismo nuevo, que es el urbanismo bioecosistémico, biológico, ecológico y sistemático. Claro, en principio, empezar a hablar de cómo tratar la ciudad para acabar pensando que estamos abriendo un nuevo concepto de urbanismo, digo, ¿dónde me he metido? Entonces, a partir de aquí, creo que uno, es interesante el hecho de que nos veamos en el aprovechamiento del agua pluvial, y dos, es interesante de qué manera podemos hacer que estos proyectos sean proyectos Europa, sean proyectos ONU, sean proyectos de la Iglesia. Entonces me gustaría saber tu opinión y entonces el hecho de que si nos puedes ayudar en algo.
O sea, su opinión, entiendo, en cuanto al urbanismo, ¿no? O sea, la perspectiva del urbanismo.
Yeah, thanks so much. Actually, my studies in the past 3 years, it was mainly on urban water security. And what you have said is really very critical to the city, because you need to have the city wise about the water. And for sure, there are principles for this. One of the main principles for this is really fit for purpose solutions. That means we cannot use high drinking water for all around use. If you wanted to wash your car, you don't need a high water quality for drinking water quality for it. Some crops, it doesn't need also high water quality for it. Even for fountains or any in the city around us, it doesn't need really a high drinking water. Why we should really lost this water with this high drinking water? So it means that to have a fit for purpose solutions, which means what I need exactly to use this water for. If I wanted to use it like for fountains or for some features for the city, then I will use water that really adaptable to this. For agriculture, some also crops, it doesn't need a high drinking water, and there is a certain crops that really can adapt and really to work with really high salinity of the water. Yeah. And this is for crucial to find the role of water, to rethink the way of water in the city. And from this, there are many examples for this. As you said, nature-based solutions are really a good examples for having these solutions. There are also many good examples about also the using of technology in order to desalinate water, not for drinking water, but for specific crops. And wastewater reuse has been also working on this as untapped resource. And in the Mediterranean, you see 80% or most of our water is being discharged to the environment without getting use of it. So the question now for us is, when we are building the investment, is to look at the city from this broader perspective. You have different uses for water, and for so you would make a water treatment or wastewater treatment for this purpose. So you didn't need to invest a lot of money, which we don't have the money or the financial resources to implement this, but you should look at this principle, which is called fit for purpose solutions. This would be the way forward for the investment in the Mediterranean. And this would be crucial also for innovations from different, from institutions, from academia, from youth, from also organizations working on this regard to work with this. But also, another thing is that you also talked about the legislation.
Yes.
If we say about wastewater reuse, and you would put it for different uses, the legislation will build also a constraint from you.
Yes.
So also our strategies and our code of practice should be also adaptable to this dynamic situation.
Yeah. Is okay? It answered the question, I hope so. Yeah, I think the water reuse, we didn't really tackle it that much, but it's really
It's very important.
Yes, it's a very important topic, and I think like we normally hear more about the desalination as, the main way of like extracting water when we don't have water. So we have the sea, we desalinate the water, and we have like fresh water, but we don't talk that much about water recycling and water reuse. And I think it's a key. It's a key topic, also for like different uses of water that we can do. Like in the city, like cleaning the streets, or like fountains, like just ornamental fountains, different types of crops, as you said. Like if I'm not mistaken, like olive trees, for example, can be water with not so high quality water. So I think it's a key topic. Also, I will keep. I will take the turn now. So I wanted to ask you as well, because desalination is a bit critical sometimes as well, because it's very energy demanding. So if we are like mitigating climate change, or like trying to make the carbon footprint a bit lower in the way like we are finding water in different sources, like desalination doesn't seem to be also the best one. Like, what do you think about this? Like, do you think desalination should be like the key way of extracting water, like finding water in new sources, or we should focus on different ways?
Okay, so in terms of the diversification of water resources is really key to ensure water security. So if I have one source, I count on it. This means that I will not be secured from if I depend on this limited resource. So I need more sources of finance for water.
Source,
Yeah, but the question here is really for each solution that we will provide, there is always a trade-offs. If you say desalination, there is also some environmental impacts on it. If you say wastewater, you would see also some implications of it, negative impacts on groundwater and also salinity of groundwater.
Yes.
And you would find many challenges around it. It's mainly how you can really understand the trade-offs and put really a strategy for you to diversify water resources. And actually what I am calling, because you see now in many countries, they say, I will go for desalination for new sources, but really first you should look what is in your hand. If you lose 50% or 30% of your water, and you are coming with a new water, so it means that also 30% of this new water will be also lost.
Yeah.
It means also if you say, I will make also desalination, do we need really the same treatment plant with this same quality of water that producing? We are talking now about fit-for-purpose solutions, as also the engineer has been saying, to have really a mindset, are different uses of water that we can use it. So not thinking about desalination, about a use of it only for a specific purpose, but having it for different purposes. And even if there is a lower water quality from the higher one, it means a low finance, low technologies, but more opportunities that you could provide to the community.
Yeah.
And that is why, in my approach, I'm not calling for a specific solution to go for it, but for a holistic solution and integrated solutions to understand all sides of it. And then you can provide the solution, because solutions could be in Spain is working perfect. If you would implement it in Egypt or in other country, it wouldn't work, because there are different conditions of it. And you would see there are many technologies and many issues around us. It's really a good, but it's really not about to share the best practice, but also sharing what fit for purpose for this country in order to implement the solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I would say from what I'm hearing that you really recommend the solving the issue of non-revenue water. I would say that's yes.
Yeah, because
that's a key thing.
Yeah, because it's really daunting. In your you see the Mediterranean, we say it's a water scarce country, and if the water in your hand is really lost. And then if we ask to increase the water tariff in order to increase the finance, the people, they are not receiving all the water that is really produced.
But the situation around this, I mean, the water that is lost, is non-revenue water, it's the same in both shores of the Mediterranean, or the figures are very different?
Yeah, I think Spain also has been really a good progress when it comes to reducing these losses. I think also with the digital transformation or the digital tools that has been implementing to detect the leakage, and even with the artificial intelligence and the new technologies, it can even detect the leakage before it happens. And this plays a great role. But you would find this is a critical point, but there are many really good examples that we can learn from the Mediterranean to limit the high levels of leakage in the network.
So there are other questions? Yes, I see there are two here. Yeah. Yes.
Sí. Sí, yo te quería preguntar, porque de la exposición surge que cada vez más es necesaria una política del agua a nivel global y no local, evidentemente, porque siempre estamos interrelacionados. Y por tanto, igual que en su día se generaron los derechos de emisiones de CO2, algún tipo de política de este nivel, a nivel global, sí es necesario. Y con esto me recuerdo de un cultivo, antes hablabas del algodón, pero si no recuerdo mal, casi todas las empresas árabes han invertido en Aragón, en las plantaciones de alfalfa, para exportar alfalfa a través del puerto de Tarragona, que alimenta a los caballos puras sangres, y de alguna manera es una huella hídrica que se está trasladando de un país a otro. La reflexión que te quería plantear va también en otro nivel, ¿no? La huella hídrica está en el aire, son las nubes. La huella hídrica está en el suelo, son los ríos, son los mares, y la huella hídrica también está en el subsuelo. Parece que ya hay soluciones de siembra de nubes en algunos países con el componente ético que antes comentábamos con Jaume, que pueda tener implicación, de la misma manera que está el retener aguas en río arriba, que pueda permitir el no uso abajo. Iría a una cuestión muy concreta. Todo parece indicar que el agua está concentrada en el norte y que el sur está sufriendo, excepto en el continente americano, está sufriendo ese estrés hídrico. ¿No parece adecuado empezar a tener una política de trasvases, y no solamente en superficie, sino en freático, para alimentar las cuencas del sur? Esta es la pregunta, y la otra es la de la tasa de agua o uso del agua, ¿no? Gracias.
What is the question about the tariff use?
La segunda pregunta.
Sí. La primera es el CO2 agua, si algún tipo de legislación de cuota o tasa impositiva que genere el trasvase de agua entre países o la huella global del agua y que por tanto compense ese uso de agua. Y la segunda es la posibilidad de trasvases no solamente en superficie sino en freático para alimentar los acuíferos del sur.
Okay, I will try from myself because the interpretation
Okay.
doesn't seem, but what I understand is mainly first about the policies that we have today. It needs really to be dynamic, because if you say to the ministry, we want to make a policy, they make a policy for a long run, for 20 years, for 10 years. But we have been facing it today is not really in the strategies that we have. So it means that we need to have a dynamic strategy in order to really work with any risks that we have been facing. In terms of water footprint, this would be the way forward for us, for each country, to see the water footprint for their country and to see which crops that really makes for them a high productivity and also high return for them. And then they can invest on it. Because there are two major pitfalls that many countries fall in it. They don't differentiate between food security and food sufficiency. And this to have sufficient of all foods that you would have it, it's really impossible and no one can achieve it. But you can achieve food security, as you said, with looking at the systems that we are working on it, and see really what can be done to ensure food security. And for that, there would be also implications over it. Like in some countries, like in Jordan, we talk about Jordan, they were using a tomato. Most of the time, farmers are really reused every year to grow potato in their country and then export it. But it's highly water intensive. If you ask them when they ask them to really to shift the crop pattern or to go for another one, they disagree. And this is very problem. That is why we need really awareness for the communities and really knowledge portal and institutes also like the European Institute of Mediterranean to get this for all citizens and for all stakeholders to be aware about the challenges and also the implications of it. And you can see this, there are many good examples of this, but it needs also somehow cultural change. Because you used it for a long time, used on specific, like in Egypt or in Spain, they used it to grow cotton. And this shouldn't be, the way forward for us. That is why you see now what we have been doing in Egypt. It has limited agriculture for cotton, and also looking at the crops in the country in order to ensure food security, and looking at the other countries or with the neighbor countries. And actually the Mediterranean is really rich of this. But if they cooperate with each other and really put the political issues or political concerns outside this and have a political will and working at different levels in order to ensure this. The other questions about the tariff, I think with the tariff it needs to be...
I think he was asking a bit more like about the taxes, no? Like kind of like carbon markets, but for water, we'll say.
This is also would be the way forward to look at the carbon footprint. I have did this study in 5 cities around the world about the greenhouse gas emissions in the water system for the system. And then you can, if you have the greenhouse gas emission from each part of the system, from water supply, you have the pumping, you have the treatment, you have the distribution, and wastewater, the discharge and treatment of it. Is this all implications of greenhouse gas emissions and the carbon? So if you could make for the water utility or for the city to say this is the greenhouse gas emissions and a goal for them, because at the end you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And this is very crucial if we can go to work with the carbon footprint. So we need first to measure how much greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the water system and also from the city, and then you can define the best ways. That is why you see now with the COPs like COP27 on climate change, they are not succeed. Why? Because they don't have really a clear goal and a clear vision how they can go forward with it. And this is very crucial. If you could say, I will mitigate climate change. Do you know the greenhouse emissions in the water or in agriculture or in the other? You would find really a rough estimates of it, but not really a clear strategy for implementing with really with data and information. And the critical point you see, there is something called the National Determined Contribution, which is country submitting to United Nations for climate change to say, this is what we will do in order to mitigate and adapt to climate change, and how much finance we need. If you look to the region, it means they don't look to each other. Each one wrote his number, and if you look how this number, some country like very small country, they call for $50 billion. And really very big country, which has many challenges, like you have like 20 billion. Why this is 50 and this is 30? It means that they don't cooperate with each other.
They don't talk to each other.
And they don't talk to each other. And even it can happen even with the same country, with the same minister, with the same ministry. Your colleagues have been assigned, you have really a goal or a vision to work and the strategy. And this is also very clear when it comes to Ministry of Water and Ministry of Agriculture. Each of them, they have their own strategy and they don't talk to each other. And at the end, when you come, you find in the media, the Minister of Agriculture come in the media and say, we will plant really million faddan of certain crops. And then the president come and also to rectify it. And then after, when they go to the implementation, the Ministry of Water will say, we don't have water. And after this, it means a failure. So it means that this is a way that we could do for first to really have a knowledge and measure it, because if you cannot measure, you cannot manage. And the other thing is really collaboration, and we have coherent policies. This is what is missing in the Mediterranean. There is no coherent policies for water, covering all the ministries, and even for other sectors, like energy and also for agriculture. It needs also to be all interconnected.
So I will give the floor to the next question.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for a very insightful presentation. I have a couple of, one question and one comment. Question, and I'm sorry, because I don't know if we're a bit late.
It's okay, it's okay.
But question, you've been talking about the case of Jordan as a very water-stressed country, but still that it manages quite well to reuse water. But apart from Jordan, could you please specify the situation in other countries, especially in the Maghreb, how the situation, not right now, because we know that, for instance, Morocco is suffering, also problem of water, big water scarcity, but the prospects for the future. Mm-hmm. And then what you said about the interconnectedness of the 2030 agenda, the SDGs, and the struggle against climate change is totally true. If we look back at what happened in 2015 was a good year. It was the year of the adoption of both the Paris agreements and the New York agreements. And then things were prepared for the 2020 objectives of reaching the 100 billion in terms of financing, an objective that had to be postponed due to the COVID. Well, at least the COVID was the excuse not to reach to reach this target. But then now we are entering a very difficult phase, and now it's no longer the COVID, because we beat it, even though we go with the masks, but we beat it, the virus. But now we have inflation, and we might enter recession.
Yeah.
Therefore, we might go back to the not as bad as in 2008, but we might go back to structural economic recession or crisis that might hamper any chances to advance the Paris and the New York agreements. So, yeah, I was carefully listening to you, and you kind of sounded at the end a bit optimistic, but you were always using if.
Exactly.
Okay, if the context is negative, as it seems that we are going to enter, then the condition will not be met, will not be fulfilled. And therefore, there will be little progress in terms of what it was agreed in the run-up to the 2020. So what can we do? Do we keep on repeating the if? Or, as the moderator said, shall we take some action, real action? Thank you.
Yeah. So I think regarding the first point about the state of water security in the northern part or even in the Middle East, you would find now that we have reached to really absolute water scarcity, which is mainly less than 500 cubic meter per capita. But there are many solutions and many challenges around each country. I cannot say that Jordan has achieved the water security because it has a problem with water. And now they have a problem even with the increasing demands. You see now with the implication on transboundary water and also with very tense also situation with other countries like Israel and around it. In terms of other countries, there are many progress, I say, in this, mainly looking at desalination as a new option for them. But you can see this, from all of this, what we have seen, that the status quo is not enough. Even they need to, not to double even their efforts, they need to triple and really to have fifth times of their efforts. But to do so is mainly to change the way we are working completely. This is why I'm calling for a new paradigm. You would find the UN and you today, they would find making a report on acceleration framework with solutions to work on it. But couldn't be implemented? No, because they didn't define how much does it cost to implement such a solution. What is really we need to do exactly for each country, because we can see the HDG section or really the Paris Agreement is really a general one for all countries, but it doesn't specify to the adaptable solution or the priorities for each country. And this is why if we need really to work on this and really start working on that, we need to put in our minds really assumptions or really principles on us. It's really, we will be facing challenges today and tomorrow and every day. Yesterday we were saying we have an excuse because we have like an economic crisis or we have some challenges. And today we say well, with Corona, and tomorrow we say it's because of the Ukraine and Russia crisis, and tomorrow we don't know what happened. And this is why what we are calling for, this new paradigm on how you can look at things. So I'm not calling to progress to change a little bit to increase desalination, to increase sources or something like this. I am calling for a new paradigm to change the way we manage water. You see here now, if you have very, very visible examples that you can see in any country, how is all this development started? You have a place or you have a communities, they don't have water, they don't have a sanitation. The first thing is they will decide, they will say, just as the first project, go for water supply, because these people will need to access to water supply. And they neglect the sanitation, while they are all one of the part water cycle. That is why, as you can see in the figure, 4.2 billion people don't have access to sanitation. And 2.4 billion don't have access to safely water. It means that sanitation, there is really a huge gap to achieve sanitation. Why is that? Because development banks or any donors or even the country itself put first water supply and neglect the sanitation part. While if they look at it from a holistic perspective and to have a coherent policy, if you wanted to ensure really, because this is also has a connection with climate change, with the greenhouse gas emissions that comes from wastewater and the discharging of it. And this is very also, and also the implications on public health. Because wastewater, if you discharge it to the environment, it has implications. And that is why I am calling it to this for development and donors and the countries, when they look to the integrated solutions. Where we can start, as I said, we can start to each one of us or each partner or each stakeholder should do his work and really collaborate with other stakeholders. That is why we have the SDG 17 for partnerships. So for us as an academia to work together, to really knowledge, to raise awareness for communities, but also to make informed decisions for decision makers, like for instance for climate change. Many ministers, they say, okay, we are impacting by climate change, but what exactly? What are the hotspots? What are the vulnerable areas that we should work on it? How we can act on it? How we can ensure the finance or find the finance for it? This is why countries need to be smart enough, not to depend on their current situation or the mode that they are approach. They have been working on it, and to look more to innovation part, to get out of the boxes that they have been doing. But for sure, this would be for sure a political or social implications for it. That is why we need really a revolution on the way we look at things, because we have been the same challenges, we have been the solutions are there, and the challenges are there, why it's not implemented. It means that it is not really measured well, it's not really well informed, it's not really designed in the way in our capacity. If you tell me now you go to the moon, but if you don't have the capacity to do so, there are many countries and many others that did this. But why from me, I should have the capacity to do this, I should have the governance and the enabling environment to do this. That is why there is no one solution fits all the challenges that we have been facing today. And that is why I call for all stakeholders for more collaboration with really impact on the society. Not to having a research, because we are working in academia not only about publishing papers or publications, but also
taking
to impact,
action.
taking action and working in actions towards this. And this for sure was really a good example, as the engineer said, about the nature-based solution, or really very like small solutions. If we can really count on it with a mind to look at these solutions, then you can achieve a lot. If governments has really in their mind this wastewater reuse, we use it for different purposes, not to look at it as a one water, or to look at it or using this high drinking water for all around use, then it change the mind of the investment that you are building. Yeah. That is why you would find many investment to look at urban areas and fountains and issues about this. If you look to agriculture, what are different water uses that we can use, and for sure there is also need to policy dialogues in the Mediterranean to open the discussion for this, because there are some constraints to collaborate with each other. Each country has its own policy. They wanted to protect itself, but they don't have a framework to really collaborate with each other that really to ensure the maximum benefit for all countries to work on this. And for sure, this would be critical to ensure water and food and energy security in the future, with implications for sure in climate change.
But following the question, we are not there yet. Because he was asking about the situation in the Maghreb in concrete, in countries in the Maghreb in 5 years. The prospect is that we haven't broken the status quo, as you are saying, that we need to really make an impact. And
there are. You would see there are a progress, but there are some challenges that comes them down. So, for now, countries, the current state, you see the inflation and the increase of food prices. as we say the estimation by World Bank, for 1% increase of food prices, it means many people will go down to poverty. So I think also the progress should to look at this ways. That is why when we are looking to the economic growth, to look this inclusive economic growth, not to look at it from numbers that we have. For sure, these countries, there are some countries, you will not find a country it's really getting ahead and everything is fine with them. There are still in the same position, or really the progress is really very, very low. But for them, all the Mediterranean countries, and I am sure of this, they exert efforts in order to progress with this, but this status quo is not enough. And that is why it is not about what you will do, it's about how you would do it. And this is crucial for the Mediterranean and the future, because now the crisis that we have been facing and the same challenges, the same solutions when we come to with each other and talk with each other, and there is no really a foundation for us. If you wanted to have really a good building and a solid building, you should have really a good foundation. And this foundation is not built in many places. This is what is starting by policy dialogues, and they really understand each other, understand the priorities, understand how we can collaborate with each other. Like in urban areas or cities, I was designing a strategic global framework for UNESCO for all mega cities, which have like more than 20 million people in the city. I can tell you, in the same country, they have different priorities, they have different needs, each stakeholder has different opinions, and they don't know how to go forward. So I think starting first with your country, and then starting also with other countries, because at the end, if you cannot inside your family, you cannot really talk to each other and collaborate with each other. Imagine how you would collaborate with other neighbors.
Yeah. So I think we need to leave it here, because
maybe a short question.
Okay, so we will take the last short question, because we started a bit late. So
okay, I'll try to be fast. So my question is, we've talked about agriculture and water, but I was wondering about tourism, because the Mediterranean region is one of the most visited regions in the world. So, and also coinciding with the summer season when resources are more scarce. So my question was, I guess these tourists consume a large amount of water, because they use swimming pools, they take long showers because they're on holidays. So my question is how can tourism have a positive impact? Is there any initiative that can make tourism more sustainable in this sense?
Yes, I think this is very important, because in tourism is very good for the country, because it brings also an economic positive impact on the economy. But the other side, there should be a governance and policies towards this. So all hotels during, I think, this period, or tourism or some cities, they need to adapt to this. So it mainly, you could increase the water tariff of it, use more technologies, and with sensors that you can use it. I was just in my hotel and I didn't find this sensor. So if you forget the water, then it's really lost in many areas. So it really brings to us for innovation and really legislation and the governance for it. And this is for all will be a crucial for it to make a sustainable tourism in our countries. And but I really, this is really very important for countries like Spain, because now not only with increasing demands, but you have also more people.
Yes.
And this is also the same that happened, like we talked about Jordan. It's the same about Jordan. With the same country, there are war in a neighbor countries, and there is a new people came to them. That means that they need also more water. So they need also to ration the water, and also have technologies that could play a great role in order to reduce this water consumption. And even you can find now in some showers, you could find some technologies with high pressure, but with low water you could consume it. So it plays a great role to conserve this water and consume it more efficiently.
Some technology and solutions that are already there. So I think now, yes, we will leave it here. We are, I mean, it's 7:40, so it's already time to finish. Thank you so much, Hassan. I think, I mean, I could stay here 3 more hours discussing, because I think there are so many things that can be, I mean, as you said, water is not a sector, it's something that is really like in all parts of our life, so I think we could tackle it from many different points, but I hope it's been a fruitful conversation and stimulating, and that you take some reflections with you home. And thank you so much, Hassan.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Marta, and thanks so much also for European Institute for Mediterranean, and also for all of you also to come today. It's really a great pleasure for me being with you today, and looking forward to collaborating and see the Mediterranean more secure and more sustainable, and having really a water and sustainable development for all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.